COVID times. So I always hold this very close to my heart. And today we are going to start with one of the very important basic topics, which is day to day in day to day life. It is very, very important for you. And I'm sure by now you have already learned this topic, but some of the details I think will be taught to you by Dr. Archana. Coming to Dr. Archana, she is a very dear friend of mine, and she's a director of Harmony Pain Clinic at Nagpur. And she is also a past secretary of ISSP Nagpur and past governing council member of IAPM. And she's always been really involved so much with IAPM classes and the whole academy as well. And she's also a reviewer of Indian Journal of Pain. And most important is she was my colleague during my PG days in Nair. So that holds a special place for me. So with that, I would request Archana to start with the topic.
Thank you, Pratibha. Am I audible?
Yes.
Thank you, Pratibha, for that warm introduction. Delighted to speak always at IOPM classes. I feel at home. So let's begin the assessment of chronic pain. So very important topic for student. I am I learned it for so many years and I'm still learning because every time something new, every day I learn something new, I feel. So learning never stops. I believe well begun is half done. So what I believe whenever we sit in pain OPD, what we are supposed to remember is to build a rapport with patient, believe in patient's pain, listen carefully, and then see the papers and use the assessment tools whenever necessary. So these are the 5 things we must remember before we start our pain OPD. Then coming to the actual history taking, I believe healing begins with history. And most of the time, history leads to the diagnosis, most of the time, 75% of the cases. So chief complaints, I have made this for, in the early days of my learning pain medicine, to remember all the points. So Socrates is one of the things which I always used to remember when I used to take during my early days of pain medicine learning. So S stands for many things, site and location. And we have to mark it on a chart or a paper. We always keep some printed forms in our OPD. I'll come to it at the end. Then onset, character. Onset tells you about the chronicity of the event or the pain. Character, as we all know, that it is so important that by which word the patient describes the pain, whether if it is burning or electric current like or something like that, when we know that it is a neuropathic like pain. So character of pain is very important. And the word with which the patient describes, you have to really write it down. If you don't find any synonym in English, you write down in the language which he speaks. And that sometimes, it leads to our diagnosis many a times, or it gives us some differential diagnosis whenever we we try to come to diagnosis. Radiation, we all know that radiation to different parts is important, whether it is the visceral connection or it is the segmental or dermatomal connection. We have to find it out. Then aggravating and relieving factors. A stands for these things. And allodynia, which means that a stimulus which is not supposed to cause pain is causing pain. Again, it points to the neuropathic pain. And so our diagnosis become little easier. And associated symptoms, A stands for that also. Like fever, if it is a fever or troubleshooting, like red flags, we always call it, we can understand the difficulty and we have to refer the patient or take help of our colleagues in case of fever or certain things like tumor or sometimes paralysis or sometimes any other symptoms which is causing the emergency or the acute condition of the patient where we need to treat the patient acutely with the help of our colleagues. And associated symptoms, like if the patient has associated symptom which is also chronic, we also come to know about the character or the type of pain when we know the associated symptoms. T is time, that is the duration, and also the frequency with which it comes. Like this is important when most of the time, for example, in headache, the classification of headache, many a times the frequency and duration and the recording of this time, the frequency and duration leads to the diagnosis, whether it is migraine or tension type headache, we come to know with pain diary. I will come to it in future, in few slides more. Then the type of pain, whether it is acute or chronic, neuropathic or nociceptive, that means the pain due to a tissue damage, or now the new term, which is, I think, replacing the central sensitization, that is nociplastic. So this can be the, or the, we would know the type of pain. That T stands for that. E for emergency symptoms or red flags, as I told you. And in that red flags, there is one thing that decreasing power or the sensation for bowel and bladder, that decreasing sensation is a very big red flag. And knowing the cause of the pain, that if there is any tumor causing this pain, we have to, this is a red flag. So we are not supposed to do interventions before we consult the actual consultant for that particular pathology. S stands for severity, that is intensity. S stands for sleep also. The sleep patterns also describe how badly the patient is affected, and many times the neuropathic type of pain, patient says दिन भर कुछ नहीं होता but रात में पेन ज्यादा होता है. So whenever there is, and मेरी नींद नहीं होती. So this again points towards neuropathic type of pain. And stiffness, S stands for stiffness also, which is very important for musculoskeletal pain. Most of the time that stiffness can point towards the tendonitis or tenosynovitis, the term says. So these are few points which leads to or which helps us in differential diagnosis. So history should include age, gender, marital status, profession, appetite, addiction, bowel bladder, allergies. Why this is important? Because certain professions we can come to know that, okay, he is a tailor, so he would have that kind of pain, or I mean, sitting for him is a very, very important thing. So when he's getting pain on sitting, so whenever there is a back pain and which is worsened with sitting, we know which type of, where we have to lead to for our differential diagnosis. Similarly, if the patient has bowel bladder along with our pain, something like irritable bowel syndrome, again, it points out towards central sensitization of the pain. Even the socioeconomic aspect or the certain genders, I would say, this genders, certain pain conditions are very common in females, they say, like fibromyalgia, sometimes rheumatoid arthritis, or neuropathic type of pain, they say that it is quite common in females. Social and economic aspect, many a times cancer patients, they come with lot of investigations and a lot of things already done, like chemo, radio, and they are actually dearth of finances. Past history will lead to that what all have been tried for this patient. So you don't do the same things, and what all have been done, or any surgery has been done for the patient because of which this pain has arose now. And family history, of course, in rheumatoid arthritis and fibromyalgia, and many other things like diabetes, if the patient is having diabetes, whether it is family history. And sometimes these comorbidities can interfere with your drug prescription. So you have to remember about that. General examination, I would say it is important, as important for any other system we examine, like gait, appearance, signs of distress, mental state, build and nutrition, height, weight, BMI. These are important. For one thing is whether what prescription you will be prescribing. And they say that gait describes or gives you some clue in the diagnosis of the patient, like osteoarthritis knee patient, even if he doesn't tell you that he has a pain, he has some pain in knees, while he is walking, you would come to know that there is something wrong with his knee, the way he, or the way the bonus of the bowing of the knees will tell you if you observe him carefully. Similarly, if the patient is putting hand on his cheek, immediately you would know that he is having one of the other kind of trigeminal neuralgia. Most of the time it is mandibular branch whenever he is holding, or when you see his skin, nail, hair. For complex regional pain syndromes, these things are very important. In which stage the patient, we all know that there are 3 stages. So we know which stage this patient is and whether it is reversible or non-reversible, we would come to know. Similarly, in trigeminal neuralgias, the eyes, they are red, swollen, watering sometimes. So you would know that ophthalmic or branch is involved and the patient is actually having this neuralgias. Similarly, with clubbing edema, we would know the associated symptoms or associated comorbidities of the patients. Sometimes prescription of certain drugs also can cause edema. We have to rule it out. And tender points, very important for musculoskeletal and fibromyalgia patients. Systemic examination, I'm so sorry, basically is important because we have to take help of our colleagues for the systemic problems. If the patient is coming with chest pain, you cannot or you should not start the treatment directly with pain medicine or the pain medications before you rule out any cardiac issue. Similarly, with respiratory or abdominal or genitourinary system, that the actually the organic cause has to be ruled out with the help of our colleagues, and then we can start our pain treatment. Similarly goes with musculoskeletal system. As our sir always says that treating pain is not just your aim, should be the aim. Why it is why the pain is, the cause of pain is important, and if the cause is not known to you, you need to take help of your colleagues. That is called as multidisciplinary approach. Now comes the local examination, the most important. After ruling out all the other things, we see the local examination, especially now see skin for rash, vesicle, scars. Now, why it is important for scar neuralgia, post-herpetic neuralgia, or any other type of neuralgias, or CRPS, that is complex regional pain syndromes. Observing skin, hair changes, nail changes, any swelling, redness, or temperature changes, or tenderness, muscle, power, tone, range of movement is important. Asymmetry, deformity is also needed to know for 2 reasons: for medical legal purpose and clue to the differential diagnosis. Remember, whenever there is a nerve compression for a long period of time, there is bound to be some muscle power decrease. So, and there is some kind of decrease in the tone also. And range of movement, of course, depending on the compression or depending on the issue, the range of movement will be affected. So we should know the test required for each part of the body, how to assess them and to come to diagnosis from differential diagnosis. Superficial and deep tendon stretch reflexes, again, they can get hampered because of the nerve compression in neuropathic type of pain. And specific diagnostic clinical test, we must know, the knee test or the shoulder test or whatever, and we should use those tools accordingly. Now we have to measure the pain in some or the other way. Why measuring the pain intensity is important? To know the severity of pain, and at the same time, whenever you prescribe or give treatment to the patient in your follow-up visit, you must be able to assess how much your treatment has helped the patient. So we have certain unidimensional scales and multidimensional scales. In unidimensional, we generally use visual analog scale or facial pain scale for pediatric age groups, or sometimes if there is a language barrier, this helps us. Now, visual analog, as you can see, the side of one side of the scale is the patient can see no pain and worst possible scale pain, and he just puts a cross wherever he feels that his pain lies in, and you would know the other part is numerically marked, and you would know exactly the numerical value of his pain. So it's visual analog, and you can convert it into numerical analog scale. It becomes sometimes difficult But most of the time, the patient would understand if you explain him properly, giving examples what is 0 pain, what is 5 pain, and what is 10 pain. So 0 to 5 is between mild to moderate pain, and 5 to 10 goes from moderate to worst pain or severe pain. Multidimensional scale, I have given a list of few commonly used multidimensional scales like brief pain inventory, Magill's pain questionnaire, West Haven Yale pain inventory, and medical outcome study SF36. But most commonly used is brief pain inventory. Every time I press one tick, it jumps for 2, 3 slides. So brief pain inventory, basically, it gives in brief that what was the worst pain, what was the least pain, what is the pain and average in last whole 1 month, and what is the pain right now, and how it is affecting you, like general activity, mood, walking ability, normal work, relation with other people. So you can see they are testing all the multifactorial things which is affecting pain, or it is involving how much quality of life is affected due to pain. So this is very important, and no other consultant than the pain medicine consultant takes care of all these quality of life issues. Then we come to assessment of the character of pain. There are certain tools which we can use, or scales which we can use, is Leeds. The most common and famous is Leeds assessment of neuropathic symptoms and signs. And we use a short form of it, SLANS. Most of the times this is possible, and I advise to keep the printed forms in your OPD, right, on your table, so that immediately you can test the patient for all these things, and they are very handy when you write the score on your case sheet. This is useful for your research purpose also if you write the scores then and then only. Neuropathic pain questionnaire, Dowlier neuropathic pain, that is DN4, pain detect and ID pain. I have given example of SLANS, which I commonly keep in my OPD. So there is a questionnaire, and you can, in short, can ask you, or you can, if the patient is waiting in OPD, you can ask your assistant to get this questionnaire filled in. Only thing is the problem of barrier is language barrier. So we can translate this into the lesional language, or we can translate verbally when we are asking the questions. So basically, this tests the allodynia and altered pinprick threshold. Mostly the diagnosis of neuropathic pain is done with this form, or this particular questionnaire. And the maximum, more than 12, if the score is more than 12, the neuropathic mechanisms is likely to be contributing to the patient's pain. Assessment of the psychology of the patient. Mind you, whenever you score and keep a record of this pain thing, of this scales, it is very good for you to assess your treatment value or the treatment effect in your follow-up visit, and for your research. Because if you have these tools already written on your case sheet, the research, doing a research or making a pro forma for the research becomes very easy. So assessment of the psychology of the patient, which is very important, because we have seen that if the patient is having depression or anxiety, treating those things or treating depression and anxiety helps you to get results for your treatment. So a simultaneous treatment for all this, and you can always take help of your psychiatry colleague or a psychology colleague for your assessment and treatment. So normally what we do is PHQ, patient health questionnaire, or there is HADS. I mean, you can all look into your Google is your friend. So all these details are given there, or in your pain medicine books, everything is mentioned. So I'm not going into details of these assessment tools. So these are the most common things which we use. I use PHQ in my OPD. So what does this tell? In last 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by any of the following problems? So again, the pleasure of doing things, feeling down, depressed, or trouble falling, or staying asleep, or feeling tired, or having little energy. All these, they all tell you about the depressed nature and how the quality of life of the patient is affected. And of course, if you have to count the total score, and depending on that score, you have to use this in your follow-up visits as well. Other important criteria like Budapest criteria for CRPS, chronic complex regional pain syndrome, ACR or EULAR for rheumatoid arthritis, or for that matter, AMOR for ankylosing spondylosis, AMOR criteria, or ACR criteria for fibromyalgia, or other disability index or scores like WOMAC, ODI for back, WOMAC for knee, SPADI for shoulder. So keep this scales or the criterias or the scales or tools ready with you in your OPD in a printed form sheet, which helps you for the you don't have to remember it by heart, because in the beginning you tend to forget things, but keeping this on your table helps you. So all the following criteria must be met when you are taking note of Budapest criteria, like sensory, the signs and symptoms like allodynia, vasomotor, temperature asymmetry, pseudomotor, edema, sweating changes, the skin changes, and motor or trophic changes, decreased range of motion or motor dysfunction, or trophic changes, hair, nails, and skin. So basically, the criteria is one sign in two or more of the categories below, one symptom in three or more of the categories below, and no other diagnosis can better explain the sign and symptoms. So these three things are very important. Continuing pain that is disproportionate is one criteria, but the other three are very important to note and to label it as neuropathic. Similarly, you all can find this in your textbooks or anywhere. So whenever you're taking history and this paper is in front of you, you can immediately take a score, and more than 6 if it comes, then it is a definitely rheumatoid arthritis, but less than 6 does not rule out rheumatoid arthritis. We have to rule out some other arthritis also along with this, like psoriatic, viral polyarthritis, gout, CPPD or SLV. And meanwhile, you can take help of your rheumatoid colleague, rheumatologist colleague for this diagnosis. So for patients with at least one joint with definite clinical synovitis, not better explained by another disease, this has to be your first criteria to get diagnose the patient as RA patient. Again, this is ACR preliminary criteria for diagnosis of fibromyalgia. Fatigue, waking unfreshed, and cognitive symptoms are very, very important. Symptom severity score. And they remember they are not the hard and fast criterias, but this helps you for research purpose, and this helps you for actually going towards proper diagnosis. Sometimes the score may not match by 1 or 2, but still you will come to know that in your differential diagnosis of fibromyalgia is getting a better scoring than the other criteria, and you can treat the patient as fibromyalgia. And mind well, there can be 2 pain conditions present in one patient. So my model of a history sheet would be the criteria written in whichever clues I would say on your case sheet with past, personal, and family history. I have a marking like via VAS or NRS in my case sheet. A pain detect or SLANS incorporated. A PHQ-9 is incorporated. And specific scores I add to these depending on the site or location of pain. So my take-home message is be patient, be empathetic, be a good listener, and believe in patient's pain. A good history takes to diagnosis most of the time. Clinical examination fetches diagnosis in remainder cases. A diagnostic block is required in some cases. Investigations are mainly to confirm the diagnosis and rule out coexisting pathologies and for medico-legal purpose. Treating psychological aspects gives better results with your treatment in chronic pain. Whenever in doubt, multidisciplinary approach is necessary. Remembering special criteria for the like fibromyalgia, CRPS, RAS is essential, and a pre-consultation questionnaire can be used if possible in your OPD, which helps you for differential diagnosis. Thank you so much.
Such a wonderful lecture, Archana. You've cleared all the basics.
I have
I should say you have cleared
used
my
only
basics
30
also.
minutes of my time because I thought question answer session would be a better.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. So I request all the students, if you have any questions, please put in the chat box. Dr. Pratibha, if you're around, please your comments on the whatever Archana has say,
Yeah.
whatever you want to say about this topic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I would like to add few things. Archana has already talked about most of the things, but I would like to add from my experience. I always like to give a lot of importance to what is the profession of the patient.
Yeah.
Because most of the times right now, nowadays, we get so many IT professionals who have a sedentary lifestyle, 6 to 8 hours of working on the laptop and continuously flexed neck. So they also, there can be a confusing picture for them. Sometimes it mimics like a radiculopathy. It can be kind of a shoulder pain, and it actually is like, myofascial pain, which is very, very, very common in IT professionals. So the lifestyle modification is something which I always insist very much for these people. So the history of profession is very important. Along with that, people who are like carpenters or farmers who are involved into heavyweight lifting. So in such people, maybe, or labor work, people who are, driving outstations, like who are doing, continuous 10 hours of driving, or lorry drivers. Like, because I work in a medical college, we get all kinds of patients. So this is very important, because again, this can cause a lot of loading of the spine, and then low back pain. Initially, it could be only low back pain and occasional radiculopathy. So you get a clue from the profession that, okay, what could be the pathology? Because it is not that they're going to come with a clear-cut back pain with radiculopathy. They will have all kinds of vague symptoms. They'll say upper back pain also, low back pain also, and neck pain also, headache also. It will be all combined thing. But then if it is the profession, then you know that predominantly what could be the reason, or what could be the pain generator. Another thing I would like to ask about any sports activity, if it is in younger patients who are coming, and if they are involved into either tennis or cricket or whatever. So if they have a shoulder pathology, then most of the times, if it is involvement of the sports activity, that could give a clue to you. And we get a lot of patients basically who are involved into lifting of heavy weights. So that's a day-to-day lifestyle for them. And then they come with, it could be a shoulder pain, or it could be a back pain. So that's something I would like to add for these things. Another important personal history I like to ask is, nowadays it has become very common, like the history of smoking. And then you have a correlation with the low back pain. And people who history of alcohol history, there could be a predominant neuropathy which may be involved in patients who are chronic alcoholics. And we do see very common substance abuse. If it is especially, it could be any age, but if it is there, if you know about the substance abuse, then you have to be very careful about prescribing opioids in this patient. So you should always ask. And especially if people who are coming from the rural population, they are already abused with NSAIDs and steroids. They don't even know that they have been taking for years together this. So that is another important history that you would like to ask. So these are few things which I felt from my experience that could add to your history.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a question. should we routinely screen for depression, anxiety in all chronic pain patients? Definitely. I think Archana would answer this.
Yes, I always go because whenever you're taking history, that time you come to know that the patient is either anxious or depressed about the whole situation. The chronicity of pain as it increases, these things come into his life or his or her life. So we need to actually always, because it comes very handy in your OPD, and while you are asking the patient, you come to know about um, uh, the psychiatric or the psychological part examination of the patient. It goes side by side. So I think it is important in every patient, and treating this depression, even the milder depression, if you treat, I think the result with your treatment, the chances of improving goes very high. So it's very, very important, I feel, in every patient I do in chronic patient.
Yeah, so I would also feel that it's very important. That's why chronic pain is a multidisciplinary approach. It is not just like you treat your only the physical part of it. We know that it's a biopsychosocial model. So it's
Yes.
very, very important that since we have a psychologist, if we feel that somebody who needs, because you may not be that trained for treating these issues. So if you feel that somebody has a potential, depression and anxiety, it is always a good idea to refer to the expert and the psychologist so that they can do their job and the patient can get benefited. Another very important thing which is there is the physiotherapy, which I think Archana would like to talk about, like if I can ask her to talk about, because we have not
Of
included
course.
that aspect.
That goes into treatment part, so I did not include it in our assessment part because
Okay.
because I have included past history in which the patient has undergone, and most of the time when we ask physiotherapy in depth, what they have actually taken is some kind of I would say that some TENS they have taken, or they have taken some shortwave diathermy, or some ultrasound, or some I don't know some
IFT
other medications, but some other I would say
modalities.
modalities, but not the active exercise part. So most of the time I have to actually emphasize on the active exercise part of physiotherapy. So nowadays I have stopped calling them whether you have done physiotherapy. I directly ask them whether you do active exercises. And I show them the chart. I have charts prepared for all the parts or whatever, I mean, the patient comes with, and I give them those charts and explain them how to do it. Sometimes I even make them demonstrate what you actually do as physiotherapy. So that tells the story that they are not actually doing any exercise, but they're just lying down and somebody is applied to them. Something is applied on them. So, but our pain medicine is incomplete without active exercise later on in the treatment. Absolutely.
There is one more
There is a
question, Archana, in the
question,
chat
I
box.
think. I
Yeah,
don't know.
there is one more question. Whether to see the average pain score or the worst pain score for your assessment, which is more
Okay.
important?
See, worst pain will tell you what maximum can happen, but average score tells you his daily. I mean, because this is we asked them for over a month, last month or last fortnight or last week. We ask them like that, and then we ask them which is the worst possible pain. If they say worst possible pain is 10, then and how many times this happened. So we always ask worst pain how many times in those days, either week or fortnight or month, and then average pain. So we treat, or the what do you say, the time in which we have to treat. If he is having worst kind of pain all the time, like average is 10, then we have to address it. The interventions do come in at that time. If his average pain is in the mild to moderate category, we might give him, or like the usual one, we give him first the medicines, and then we wait, and in our follow up we see what is the uh, what do you say, the effect of our medicines. And then, because straight away we cannot go for interventions, that is the reason why we ask for average and worst pain. Is it
Yeah,
explained?
to sum up, she said that both actually average and worst pain both are equally important, and that is why it is important because that will decide what is the quality of life of the person and how he's dealing with it. And for us, it is important because we can decide whether how aggressive you want to be when you're wanting to treat the patient.
As Pratibha said that the profession is important. So I had mentioned in my history that the profession has to be taken care, and if the he is dependent on his profession and his profession is getting affected, you need to intervene aggressively, like sports or tailor for that matter, carpenter. We need to do treatment aggressively. Otherwise, we can wait and watch.
Okay, so
Any
there is
other?
another
I think.
question. Post procedure, when we ask the patient how much improvement is there in subjective terms, they mention 30%. But when we ask the same patient functional activities like in ONE, patient climbing stairs or walking, they are able to perform those. In this scenario, subjective value holds more importance or functional improvements.
This is a very tricky thing, and in pain medicines, you will always be caught up in tricky situations, and we have to form your own judgment of things, like, and write down on your paper. So recording on your paper is so important. How was your walking quality, or how much pain were you getting? And while walking, the pain was going from 3 to 6 or 6 to 9, and while climbing down, the pain was getting from 6 to 9, whatever it was, and we have to mention it in our paper. And when they say that they can perform it now, we have to make them realize most of the time the patients now they want complete relief, they want pain to be zero. And if the pain is not zero, they always keep on saying there is pain, there is pain, treatment का कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ. This type of conversations will happen when you sit in the OPD. So you have to make them realize that previously the pain was this, you were not been able to do this, now you are able to do this. That means there is improvement, and we will get more improvement as the time goes and you follow the treatment further. Or if you want to do some interventions later on, you can do that intervention. So you have to educate patient about how to assess his own pain and how to give you the correct information. So this comes with experience, I feel.
Yeah, and so perfectly said, Archana. What I would like to say is, if you ask any of the chronic pain patient, as she said, they will never be happy because they have an idea that if they are undergoing such aggressive treatment, some intervention is done, you've been taken into the operation theater, then that means that the result they want is completely like, they're going to, next day they're going to be perfectly all right or normal, which is not going to happen. So this whatever subjective you're talking, it will come like that only. If it is 60% also, they are going to say 30%. So for you, what is more important is you find out. I usually like to ask the relatives who are close to them, who are
Correct.
observing them. I always ask the relative who are there. So what do you think that how is the improvement? So then they will tell you that, okay, this they were not doing, now this they are doing. So or this much improvement is there, and we are quite happy about it. So as long as you get that information, you know that there is a very good improvement, and the number that like Archana said, over a period of time with experience, you will understand to how to judge their number as the correct number. Their number may
Yes.
be different, but actual improvement may be something different. So go more for the how day-to-day activities have changed and what
Yeah.
they were not able to do before and what are they able to do now. That's more important than just the number, because most of them don't even understand. See, for
Yeah.
you it is very important, but for them it is not that. No, they, how much ever we tell, I tell my patients and I really want them to tell, but they refuse to tell the correct number. They said,
Number.
we so many a times they say that no, I don't understand what you are telling, or I can't tell in the numbers. So don't bother so much about that. If they are not able to do that, you should find out the activities that have made a change, or how day-to-day life had changed for them.
And even their answers will tell you that whether you need to give them the cognitive behavioral therapy in further session. I keep giving them 1 or 2 sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy if the patient is continuously telling negative in spite of functional improvement, as the relatives say, but they are not actually doing it. So their way of thinking, we have to, change that. That comes under cognitive behavioral therapy, and that really, really helps.
Yeah, so the
Okay.
next one is, ma'am, there is a facial assessment. Is there a
Yeah.
facial assessment for depression as well? Because many patients look depressed and anxious, but don't want to admit it, especially in front of relative.
Yeah, many a times it happens, and many a times we have to take the history separately, because when there is husband and wife coming together, this kind of because like fibromyalgia patients, for say example, they are troubled, or they are depressed about so many things in their life, and because of husband, or some family issues, and they will never express it. So you always take the such patients history separately and the relatives history separately. And if they're depressed, the facial assessment, and um, you ask certain questions, the key questions, as I mentioned in the psychiatry, psychology, psychological assessment, and they will answer you whether you feel depressed, tired, how you wake up, and all those things, whether you feel like doing some good work, going out, all these things. If you ask them, and the look and the history will match each other, and you will be able to know that when the history is taken in, what do you say? When the patient is alone without the relative. That happens quite often. So
I think you people should go through the various scales and scores, which you may not do in a routine practice because of a lack of time or something like that. But as a fellows, I think it's very important for you to, like what Archana had given, few of the scales, no, which were very important. So for a neuropathic pain, definitely make it an habit of doing an S lens, which doesn't take much time. Or if you can translate it and keep it in before coming, just give it to them and ask them, and then confirm once again as you're taking the history. So similar to that, like HAM-A, HAM-D for the
yeah,
depression, or PHQ-9, whatever you feel is simple, but make an habit of taking those that history, so that you become uh,
absolutely, yeah.
well versed
And you
with
can
this
keep
technique.
those things on your table. Actually, a glass, what do you say? Glass slide नहीं, क्या बोलते हैं उसको? You can keep all these in a printed format under your table, and a glass sheet on it. So you always have, because you keep forgetting these things, what to ask and what not to ask. So in between the two patients, you can just go through it, and whatever you have asked history, you can actually immediately take the counting and keep it, write it on your case paper, or while the patient is, you're asking the history to the patient, you can write it. And give time to the patient, because this all requires time, and most of the time we do not give time, and then there is a problem with assessment. I feel so.
Yeah. So next question is, many chronic pain patients are already on gabapentin NT. So which drug to start for these patients? Okay, so
Yes,
maybe I think
because
this
every
topic
Tom,
is
Dick, and
not.
Harry writes gabapentin. All the consultants, they know कि gabapentin 100 milligram OD they write, and they expect that the pain should go. So 100 milligram OD uh, just doesn't work. Actually, the way of it is giving, only the neurologist give it in the incremental dose, I have seen, but rest of the all orthopedicians and many other surgeons, they just write one gabapentin NT, or sometimes only gabapentin NT they are scared of, and the patient's pain doesn't go. So we have to optimize the dose. Here comes the optimization of the dose, and depending on the patient's body build and the other medications if he's on, and we have to start. Generally, what I do is I start with pregabalin, and if I have to maintain the patient for long duration, or for elderly patient, I do gabapentin. And NT, that is amitriptyline, I first check the ECG, and I continue the nortriptyline, but I take an ECG after 3 months or 4 months. So that's something I do. And if there is any other thing, I check LFT, KFT in between. So 3 to 4 months is my duration when if the patient is on medications continuously, then I check these two things, ECG and KFT, LFT.
Yeah, so for me, I think in my experience, patients who come to me are already on a very high dose of neuropathic medication, anti-neuropathic medication, mostly
Okay.
started by neurologists, because they'll be
Okay.
on 450 TID, and they'll be completely drowsy, zombie, And the family members are also very much worried that the person is not even like, they look, you can see the look on the patient. They're very typical look patients who have on a very high dose of medication. So the question here is, the patient is already on gabapentin, which drug to start? So there is no one single answer for this. Because depending on what patient is presenting with, whether it is a patient of herpes zoster, trigeminal neuralgia, low back pain, facet joint arthropathy, CRPS. So it is not like, depending on what condition patient is presenting with, depending on that you can decide. But you can start with the low dose, as Archana said, that you could use. Everybody has their own practice. Over a period of years, you develop one kind of a practice, and you know that this is the way you want to start. So somebody may want to start with pregabalin, somebody may want to start with gabapentin, but it has to be an optimal dose and lowest possible dose if the patient is completely naive. And then you can start slow, and like, you always have to, because most of the patients, if you start on a higher dose, they will stop the drug without even telling you, because they'll have so much of drowsiness, dizziness, that they're not. And it is very, very important to educate the patient and tell them that this drug is going to cause drowsiness, and over a period of time you may settle with this. So do not stop the drug, and do not drive or do not go. If it is like 70-80-year-old, then even if it is a minimal dose of medication, they are going to have they may fall, and it is going to cost a lot to them. And as she said, nortriptyline, always elderly patient with cardiac problems, patient who already has a problem with, micturition problems. So there you have to be very careful about starting the medication. And we have the neuropathic guidelines which are developed, and ISSP has those guidelines. And so it is for the Indian population. So you should go through that and find out that how it can be done. But there has to be, like, it is not one formula for each patient. Okay, patients with herpes. So herpes patient, herpes patient, mostly they are elderly patient. So most of the times we start them with Pregab NT 75. If it is like more than 75 years old or 80 years old, then we start it with the 50 milligram dose. And then Ultracet semi or something can be added. In addition to that, you can give a gabagesic cream, because they have allodynia and hyperalgesia. So it is like, different group of drugs can be added in a minimal dose, so that they have the best effect. What help us differentiate neuropathic versus nociplastic pain when both features overlap?
Should I answer?
Yeah, Archana.
Yeah. Okay. So this nociplastic is a new term coined recently. Previously, we used to call it central sensitization. So as we can see in neuropathic, there is some neural element damage or cut or something related to nerve has happened in the past, like scar neuralgia or trigeminal neuralgia or certain types of neuralgias. But when it comes to nociplastic, the examples can be fibromyalgia or irritable bowel syndrome, things like that, where the non-painful stimulus or somewhere else, the main pain is at other location, and somewhere else it's not even radiation of pain. It is not something which you can connect to the two things, but some that is why I think in pain definition they have mentioned that actual tissue damage is one thing and potential tissue damage and the emotional experience of it. So pain is emotional. So in nociplastic, it is most of the time the emotional part which is more what do you say presenting, and there is no actual tissue damage. So these two things, and these similarly with neuropathic, the pain is more when the patient is resting or at night when the patient is not doing anything, and it can get distracted by some things or some actions which the patient is like a patient likes it, like fibromyalgia patient, when she goes out with friends she completely forgets the pain, or the severity is so less that she forgets it. But when she's with husband and doing some housework or some other things, she is having pain. So the husband always comes like, how can you explain this pain, that sometimes it is there and sometimes it is just vanished. So this is a perfect example of nociplastic. And neuropathic pain will always remain there to some extent when the nerve damages happened in the past.
Yes, so I would just like to add that maybe neuropathic pain, as she said, there is always an evidence. Some of the
Huh.
other form of evidence is there for you to say that,
Yes.
okay, it could be diabetic neuropathy, it could be
Yeah.
trigeminal neuralgia, it could be, whatever, like herpes,
Yeah. Yeah.
something like that. So you have, or some nerve compressive neuropathy is there. So you have some evidence, some in history wise as well as investigation wise, there is some evidence for you to know that, okay, this is a neuropathy. Where in nociplastic, it is a pain disproportionate to the clinical findings. There
Yeah.
is nothing for you. Everything is normal MRI investigations, whatever NCS, EMG, whatever you have done, everything may look normal, but it may be very disproportionate. The features may be same, but it may be disproportionate to the clinical findings. Then you will have to really, that is when I think it's a real testing time for an pain
Yes.
physician to understand exactly what is this. And you have to fit into the category of nociplastic pain.
Absolutely.
Anything else? I think you have done a good thing by giving a good amount of time for discussion and completing your topic in half an hour.
Yeah, that's what I always like, because there is the question answer session, I think, is most
Yeah,
important.
it is more learning for them.
Yes.
Anybody has any other questions?
And I'm sure as you see the patients, the number of questions will be more. If you don't have questions, then you don't see the patients. That's the so good. I enjoyed giving answers with Pratibha because she always gives me one or two clues every time I meet her. She always enlightens me with something whenever I meet her.
That's so sweet of you. Okay, I think we are
Yeah,
done.
I think we are
with
done. And
this.
the time is also, I think, Manjari?
Yeah, we can finish off the session if Dr. Pratibha and you agree with
Yeah.
it.
So
No more questions in the
I
chat,
think there
okay?
are no
Yeah.
more questions. If anybody has questions, you could also ask physically. You need not only ask on the chat box. Or if there are no questions, then thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful
Thank
with
you so
you
much.
all.
It was wonderful lecture.
Always
Yeah.
love IAPM classes.
So let's end the session. Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Thanks a
everybody.
lot, Dr. Pratibha, and
Yeah.
thanks, Dr. Archana, both of you. It was a lovely discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the feeling is mutual. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Bye. Good
Bye.
night, everybody.
Bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Shubharatri.